take a little break in our readings of 1 Kings, where we were looking at the story of the prophet Elijah, to celebrate St. Barnabas. Now, some of you might be asking, well, we celebrate saints all the time, and we usually maintain the cycle of readings. We don't do special readings, but that usually gets thrown out the window when a person is mentioned in sacred scripture. So in this case, Barnabas was one of the early Christian saints mentioned in scripture in the Acts of the Apostles. And so for his feast day, we do his reading, where he's mentioned. So we do that for Timothy and St. Titus. We do that for St. Mary Magdalene, any other saint in the early church that is mentioned in scripture. We usually use their reading in which they are mentioned. This has nothing to do with the first reading that was given to us, but it's always one of my favorite things about St. Barnabas and also about St. Paul. I'm sure you're sick of hearing it, but I think it's always a great reminder of this story here because it's so practical. It so relates to our current situation and our current lives. We can relate to this, and we can say, "Oh, yeah, I know what that's like. I've been there." St. Barnabas was a travel companion of St. Paul. And in, I believe, their first missionary journey, at least St. Paul's first missionary journey, they also had a person with them named John Mark. Okay, so many people believe that John Mark is also the gospel writer Mark. That's the same person. We don't know for sure, but that's a theory that's thrown out there. And in their first missionary journey, St. Paul, St. Barnabas, and this figure, John Mark, which could be St. Mark, John Mark leaves them. We don't know why. Could be maybe he's burnt out, maybe he's tired, maybe he's scared. Maybe he had a disagreement with St. Paul or St. Barnabas. We don't know why he left, but he abandons them during their journey. He leaves them hanging, okay, as the kids will say today. So St. Paul and St. Barnabas finish the rest of their journey without John Mark, and I'm sure there were inconveniences put upon him when he left. Maybe there's something that John Mark did or provided for the group, and they don't have it anymore, and somebody has to pick up his slack. Okay. So on their second missionary journey, St. Barnabas wants to bring along John Mark. And St. Paul's like, no way. He left us the last time. We don't want to bring him again this time. Apparently, St. Barnabas was so adamant about bringing John Mark that he also decided not to go with St. Paul on his second missionary journey. So as Acts of the Apostles tells us that St. Paul and St. Barnabas split, and we never hear in sacred scripture ever again that the two were back together. And so I like telling that story because, like recalling that account, because here we have two saints who get into a disagreement and maybe even a heated argument, and they end up splitting and never getting back together again. See, even this stuff can happen to saints. In our lives, we encounter people with different personalities. And so sometimes personalities don't clash. Maybe we can think of people where they just irritate us. Maybe they never did anything wrong to us, but it's just like, we don't like, we don't like their arrogance. We don't like, maybe they don't talk enough or they talk too much. Whatever it is, we're all different, and sometimes we don't gel. And sometimes we beat ourselves up over it and say, well, I don't get along with this person. I must be doing something wrong. No, just calm down. All right, we're called to love everybody, but not necessarily like everybody. There's a difference. There's also a difference between love and nice, too. They're not the same thing. And I'm not saying we should go out and be jerks to people and stuff like that, but sometimes things won't work out with people. And sometimes the best thing to do in order to maintain our sanctity, okay, and to maintain our holiness so we don't fall into sin, is to just, okay, all right, I can't do this anymore, you know. Now, we should always call to pray for people and always call for their conversion and holiness. But sometimes things won't work out. We're all flawed people. We all have differences. We all have different traits. And sometimes it just doesn't work out with somebody. Okay? That's okay. Pray for them. Pray for their holiness. Pray that they become a saint, just like St. Paul and St. Barnabas are saints. Pray for their holiness. And maybe pray the fact that maybe you can work it out. You know, don't give up on that either. But just know that sometimes you can be a saint, like these two, St. Paul and St. Barnabas, even though sometimes we struggle with our relationships with people. With God, all things are possible. May God bless you.